Today we're going to talk about odd-even identities. As a reminder, odd functions are ones where f of negative x is the same thing as negative f of x. So that's odd, and even is when f of negative x equals f of x. So we're going to look at that in terms of trig functions. What happens to a trig function when instead of theta we plug in negative theta? So here's a diagram that we're going to be using. When we have an angle of theta, it looks like this, usually in the first quadrant. It could be in another quadrant, but its reflection over the x-axis would be negative theta. So if this is y, x, and r, here we'll have negative y, still x, and still r. So most of them are going to be different, but some of them will be the same. So if we have sine of negative theta, that's negative y over x, negative y over r. So negative y over r, because that's negative y over r, we'll say that that's just negative sine of theta. If we have cosine, well, that's adjacent, so x over r, neither of those are negative, so that's going to be the same thing as cosine of theta. When we have tangent, we're saying the opposite, negative y over positive x, so that's negative y over x, or negative tangent of theta. With cosecant, that's opposite, hypotenuse over opposite, so that's negative r over negative y, so negative cosecant of theta. Secant is adjacent and hypotenuse, so hypotenuse over adjacent, which is the same thing as secant. And cotangent is x over negative y, so negative x over y, which is negative cotangent of theta. So let's identify this one, cosine, and its reciprocal, secant, are two even functions. These are our two even functions because they don't involve the opposite side. And our other ones all involve the opposite side, and so they are odd. When you put in a negative angle, it's the same thing as taking the negative result of the positive angle. So you're going to need to know these formulas. You can either refigure them out every time, or you can just memorize that cosine and secant, when you plug in a negative angle, give you out the same thing. And for the other four trig functions, when you plug in negative theta, it gives you out negative cosecant of that angle, or whatever it is. So if I ask you what's sine of negative theta plus tangent of negative theta plus cosine of negative theta, you should be able to figure out, okay, this one is the same thing as negative sine of theta. Sorry, that's not supposed to be division. This is also odd, so it's negative tangent of theta. But cosine is even. Cosine and secant are even, so this is just cosine of theta. So that would be a way to rewrite our original statement.